This is probably the cheapest way to get synchronized playback of 4 full HD videos. First, what on earth is this for? Well, I test a lot of video switchers on this channel, and while I can route my cameras into the switchers to test them, sometimes it's nice to be able to test with actual video from somewhere so that I'm not always just looking at myself. So that could be like playing back somebody else's live stream or playing Mario Kart with my cats. This is actually also a great way to practice live switching. You can play back all your cameras from an event as if they are live, and then you can practice producing a live stream and cutting between different camera angles live. The challenge, of course, is doing this in a way that is actually affordable and doesn't involve buying 4 or more hyperdecks at $500 each. There are cheaper HDMI players available, like these, for example, but good luck hitting play on all 4 of them at the same time. So that takes us to this little rig. The basic idea is to take 4 of your cameras and then combine them into a single 2x2 video grid that is 4K, put that into a single 4K video player, run that output from the player into a converter that splits them back out into individual 1080 HDMI feeds. All right, did you catch that? Let's go through this step by step, starting with creating the video file. It's easiest if you're starting with a recording that was created using something like an A10 Mini Extreme ISO, where all the cameras are already recorded all in sync together. So for example, this folder here is a recording from Lily's A10 Mini Extreme, and we can see that there are the 8 cameras from the A10 Mini Extreme here, and they're all the same length. All of these video files are the same length already. You can also do this with recording in camera, but you'll want to make sure to sync up those video files later once you bring them into the editor. So I'm going to take these clips and bring them into the editor here. First thing I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to set the project in Resolve to make sure it's 4K. I'm gonna make sure the timeline resolution is Ultra HD 3840x2160. And now I'll pick 4 of the cameras to arrange into a grid. So if we look through what we've got for the different angles, this is her main camera. Camera 2 is going to be the overhead camera, which wasn't on at the beginning of the stream, but turned on later. Camera 3 is the cats, so we may or may not use that, but somewhere in here they go and eat dinner. Camera 4 is, it looks like, yeah, her iPad screen shared into the Apple TV. So she's talking about things that she's navigating on the iPad there. Camera 5, I believe, is empty. And then camera 7 is video clips playback. So I'm not going to include that one because I'm going to probably try to play these back live rather than recording. So I'll use a countdown. I'll actually create a countdown timer simulated when I'm actually using this to test. Camera 8 is her chat. This one could be useful to simulate, but since I think I already have 4K angles I want to bring in, we'll leave this one out of it. So we'll start with the main camera. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new timeline with this clip, and we'll use the project settings, which will make it a 4K timeline. So let's just double check that this did actually create a 4K timeline. Yep. And now I'm going to scale this down to the top corner because that'll be then 1080. So I'll set the zoom over here to 0.5, and I'm going to scoot this over until it goes all the way at the edge, which is going to be, I believe, 960. So I'll just scoot this over to 960, and it'll scoot up until 540. So that puts it in the top left corner. Now let's bring in camera 2. For camera 2, I don't want the audio, so I'll just hold down Option while I drag that in. So over here, let's now do the same thing here. We're going to scale this. Here we're going to say it's 960 and 540. Want to make sure we get the Apple TV in here, so I'll drag this into the third one and then do the same scaling. And then we will bring the cats in for camera 4. Great. So now we've got our grid created, and you can see as I'm scrubbing through this, they're all now in sync. And because these were ISO files recorded on the A10 Mini Extreme, they are all the same length and they're all already in sync. So again, if you did record these all internally in camera, they're going to be starting in different places. So you'll want to make sure you sync them up using the auto sync feature or just visually lining them up. So the idea here is that since this canvas is 4K, we have each of the 1080 original video files in a 1080 slot in that 4K canvas. So this is set up. I've got one audio track now for the whole stream. I'm gonna go ahead and export this as one file. We're gonna call this Lily Stream. And I'm gonna actually do MP4 as H.265, which will use better compression, and this Micca Speck 4K video player can actually play back H.265 files. So let's go ahead and add that to the render queue, and I'm gonna click render, and we'll give this a minute to render out. So now that this is done, you can see I've got my 4K combined feed. It ended up being about 28 gigabytes, and this is the single video file with the 4 cameras all baked into one video file. So this I can put onto an SD card or USB drive and load it into the player. So next up is the HDMI player. These little Micca Speck players are really amazing for how cheap they are. This one's the 4K version. They do have a 1080 version as well. The 4K version's about $50 on Amazon. Sometimes you can find them for a little bit cheaper if you get them used. The really great thing about this is that you can set up to autoplay videos whenever an SD card or USB drive is plugged in. And it could even start autoplaying when it powers up. So it's perfect for digital signage, but also for this. We do need to tweak a couple settings on here, so let me go through those now. When you power up the Micca Speck with no storage plugged in, it'll boot to the menu like this. It comes with a little remote, which is how we're going to navigate through the menu system. So here what I can do is I can go navigate over to settings, and we're going to first set the display resolution. The display resolution is where you'll set it to 4K. Now, right now, this is actually plugged into my ATEM so that I can show you the screen. So we'll have to come back to this when it's actually plugged into a 4K monitor. I do, however, want to go down to the autoplay section, and this, we're going to make sure that videos is selected. This means as soon as it detects a storage SD card or USB drive, it's going to just autoplay any of the videos that it finds on the drive. You do have the option of using it for autoplaying photos, which is useful if you want to just use it as a slideshow for digital signage, but we're going to use the videos option here. The other settings are fine as default, so we'll just go ahead and exit out. So now that that's configured, as soon as I pop in this SD card here, it'll take a second to read the SD card and then start playing that video. Next, let's go over this video wall controller. Now, this is the magic box that takes this grid of videos and splits it back into individual outputs. This is called a video wall controller because normally what you use it for is to take a single image and break it out into multiple TVs to give you an even bigger picture than just one TV. But in this case, it actually works perfectly for what we're doing with it. So there are a whole bunch of these, and this one is a no-name brand that I found on AliExpress. This one was about $30. I'm pretty sure they're all about the same, but you do want to make sure that you find one that supports 4K Ultra HD and that supports the 2x2 configuration. The only setting on here we need to worry about is the configuration of the screens. Some of them do have an option to do multiple different options like 1x4, 1x3, or 2x2. And this one in this case actually has a little button on the front to toggle the mode. So now if we take the 4K video and feed it into the video wall controller, we are going to break those out and the outputs will be individual 1080 feeds. I should mention this box in the middle. Now, this is actually just an HDMI splitter. It isn't strictly necessary, but I did add it in here for a couple of reasons. This one is a simple HDMI splitter. It takes one video in and it has two HDMI outs. This is not the cheapest splitter. It's about $30, but it does have a feature that a lot of splitters don't, which is that it can also scale. So if I give it a 4K video in, I can actually use the switches on the front to change it between whether or not you want it to scale either of the two outputs. So here I have HDMI 1 set to not scale, and HDMI 2, it will scale. And that'll downscale HDMI 2 to 1080. The reason I did this is because my live stream setup is not 4K, so I can't actually input a 4K signal into it. I need to input a 1080 signal. So by doing it this way, I can feed a 4K version of the video into the 4K video wall controller, and I can send a downscaled 1080 version into my video switcher. This is for two reasons. One, because this will let me just bring the video into the switcher. That way I can do things like show you the 4x4 video grid that is being played back, but also so that you can actually navigate the menu system of the Micca, because otherwise it's kind of hard to use it when it's just showing up on 1/4 of the screen at a time. So if I go back out of this, now it's actually routed properly, we've got it going through the video splitter, and that means this is connected into a 4K source. Now when I go over to the settings to configure the resolution, we will get a 4K option here. So I'm going to go and make sure I set it to 3840 by 2160. And now it's actually going to be outputting a 4K signal into the splitter. And the splitter is doing the downscaling 4K into the video wall controller, 1080 into the ATEM, and that's why we can still see this screen here. So now that this is all set up, we've got everything routed properly. These 4 HDMI cables coming out of the video wall controller are going to give me individual HD versions of each of the original cameras that's being played back from the SD card. So now I can go ahead and plug in the 4 cables into the back of the OSEE GoStream, for example, and I can see I've got the 4 videos now output into the individual HDMI inputs of this device. This is the scaled down 1080 version over here in my video system, so I can actually show it to you on the screen, and also so I can see the screen of the Micca. And you can see now that if I try to go into the menu system, this is where it gets really hard to actually use it on this device because I can only see part of it at a time. So now I can actually use this screen over here to navigate and make sure that I'm doing the settings right. So now again, as soon as I pop in this SD card, it'll take a second to read the SD card. and start playing back the videos. And we get each of the original cameras broken out into an individual input on the GoStream. And now I can test out a video switcher. I can cut the camera angles. I can show the cats. I can show the iPad. I can even do things like make a super source layout side by side showing the iPad screen and the cropped camera there. And now I can just use this like as if this was actually a live show. So I can practice switching. I can test different layout options available in the device. And this is just, it's like I have four HDMI players playing back all in sync. It's just all coming off of this one little box. So there you have it. For about $100, we have a 4-channel video playback device. I will leave links to everything I used in the description down below. I also recommend picking up some short, slim HDMI cables like these, as well as a USB-C to DC barrel cable to power the Micca Speck, and that way you don't have to use a bunch of wall warts to power all these. All 3 of these devices are powered from a USB power brick. The next thing I want to do is put these 3 things together in a little box. It'll make it a little bit tidier. That way I can use it more regularly in the studio without having this big mess of cables. I'm going to try to do some cable management and make some sort of box to make this just one package. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss when I post an update about this. And of course, subscribe if you're interested in little video switchers like this, because I sure have a lot of them to test for you. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.